What is your primary attention focused on when you're riding a motorcycle? There are a lot of potential hazards on every ride. The sooner that we see those hazards, the sooner that we can adjust to them. With good awareness, in most cases, we only need to make adjustments on the road, which is much preferable to reacting to the dangers on the road. If you find yourself in a position where you often need to react in order to avoid crashes or near crashes on the road, then your road strategy could probably use some adjustment. This week on MCrider, I want to give you a tool that you can use on every ride that will make the situations where you have to react drop significantly. Remember last week on MCrider, we talked about using lane position to put us in a better position to see what is ahead and to move us further away from potential hazards. So if you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to watch it also because it ties into this one. But the lane position of being able to see the road ahead is limited if we don't know where to look and what to look for and to use that information to our advantage. Imagine a clock face over the top of a rider. The vast majority of our attention should be focused on what is happening from the 11 to 1 o'clock areas and the 6, with about 95% of that focus being on the 11 to 1, especially when we're in motion. Knowing what is going on behind you or in your 6 is especially important anytime we slow down, intend to change lanes, or when we're stopped within our lane. A quick glance at the mirrors or a quick head check over your left or right shoulder is all that's needed to keep track of your 6 o'clock area. When moving, most of the threat is ahead of us, and that requires the vast majority of our attention. I like the acronym TUG, or TUG, that stands for Take, Use, Give, and it's something that a smart rider is constantly doing when they're riding. So let's look at each one of these TUG in a little more detail. Take. We're constantly taking in information. Some of the information we take in is very obvious. Maybe a car has their turn signal on in front of us. The car ahead of us activated their brake light. Everyone knows what these signals mean and how it can affect us on the road. Some of the information that we take in is less obvious, but this often separates the rider with a good road strategy from the rider with the poor road strategy. Say a driver ahead has had their turn signal on for the last 3 intersections, or for no apparent reason, the driver ahead brakes, then turns on their left signal, followed by their right, then activates their brake lights again, all while speeding up or slowing down in their lane. We'll get back to this driver in a minute, but what does that tell us about that driver? That's a question that needs to be answered because the next step in our acronym is use, and that's what we do with the information that we take in. So we take in information from the cars around us, and then we use that information to our advantage. So let's say the car ahead activates their turn signal. We see that, and we use that information to do a few things. At this point, all we really know is that the car ahead has activated their turn signal. Whether they will actually turn is another question. With that information, though, we know that we'll likely need to slow down, so this is not the time for us to be on the throttle and accelerating. We'll maintain or roll off the throttle a little bit, maybe activate our tail light so that the cars behind us know what our intention is. We'll check the mirrors because we do that every time we want to slow down. And if the car ahead is turning left and the car behind me doesn't slow down, what's my escape route? Do I need to move to the right of my lane to create space and get in a position to escape if that car behind me doesn't stop or see what's going on ahead of them? Or let's say that the lane to our right is open. You may be able to change lanes and continue on without slowing down at all, reducing the risks of the car that's behind you as well. So the sooner we take in the information, the sooner we can use that information and hopefully create an environment where we adjust on the road rather than react to avoid the mistakes or intentions of others. How you use the information that you take in will change from ride to ride and from intersection to intersection. And that's what makes road strategy more of an art form. There's not always a 100% right or wrong answer to what drivers are doing around us. Sometimes we're stuck with making a decision that's based on whether it's worse or better than average for the given situation. So let's go back to that car with the left signal followed by the right and intermittently braking. When I see that car acting strangely like that on the road, it's often one of three things. It's either an impaired driver, a highly distracted driver, or a lost driver that's trying to figure out where they're supposed to be going. But whatever the situation for that driver is, it's a direct warning to you as a rider. Give them space. So whatever's happening in that car is more than the driver can handle at that moment, and your presence on the road is the least of their worries. So you need to stay out of their bad situation. Give them time and space so that when they do something that's totally irrational, like slamming on the brakes for no reason, swerving left or right, or swinging wildly into a U-turn, and yes, I've seen drivers do all three of those things, you want their poor choices to have less impact on you as a rider. So we take in the information from the drivers and the environment around us. We use that information to adjust our riding. And finally, we also give information. Giving information can be obvious, like using our turn signals, using hand signals. I do that occasionally if there's going to be a big slowdown and I'm turning. Or changing lane position to make ourselves more visible is also giving out information as well. Some information we give is less obvious, like activating our tail light even when we're using engine braking to slow down and we've got cars behind us. Remember, we can slow down a whole lot with engine braking, but it doesn't activate the tail light. So remembering to activate the tail light is also going to give information to drivers around you. Some information is given even before we get out on the road, like adding extra lights to the front and rear of your motorcycle, wearing riding gear that contrasts with the environment. All of that is a way of providing information to drivers around you and helping alert them to your presence. All three, take, use, and give information, are important. However, to me, taking and using information has particular importance, because giving information relies on the receiver of the information or the other drivers to see and process that information that I'm sending out. But the truth is, there are more distracted drivers on the road than at any time that I can remember in the past, and I never want to blindly trust the drivers around me to do the right thing on the road if there's something that I could have done to lessen their impact on me if they do the wrong thing out on the road. So by all means, give information to other drivers around you. I hope that they see it, but make sure you're taking in information, particularly from your 11 to 1 and the 6 o'clock positions, and use that information to your advantage to affect your lane position, following distance, braking, and accelerating. So tug, take, use, and give. It is often the difference between adjusting to the changing circumstances around us or reacting to the poor choices of other drivers. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.